I'm Remy. Pleasure to meet you. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I'd love to introduce my story to you all and ideally bring it to life with you. The idea behind Orishas, owner of the palace, which now I can share my screen. My background is in architecture and development. That's what I do for a living. And as a part of my background, it has enabled me to create a visual novel that will inspire more and more readers for generations to come. I have about 17 different pages that I'll be unveiling, mostly new graphics for most of you. Some of it you may have seen before, but all in all, it's to help tell the full story of what's to come. Go ahead, Julie.
How many pages is this going to be in total?
Well, that's a hard question to answer, but I'll do my best. When I when I completed the outline for the first two manuscripts, it was just under 200,000 words.
Oh, okay.
And that's just for the outline.
Wow.
Right now, where I'm tracking, I broke that out into two different installments. I ended the outline. Right now, I'm in the process of finalizing the manuscript for the first installment. And where I am today on that, the first installment should be roughly 10 chapters. I couldn't tell you how many words that's going to be quite yet, but it's roughly, I would say my target is somewhere between 75 and 100,000 words for the first installment. And
that's about a normal length for a novel.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I certainly want to make it palatable, digestible for modern readers as well. Breaking it down, here's some of the visuals you may or may not have seen. This here is a nod to what's to come. These characters that you see here to the left, I'll start on the very left, that's Marcos. Here next to Marcos is Ebro, and next to Ebro is Osha. The landscape scene to the right of that is the Oyo Empire. Now, installment one will take readers from Dallas, Texas, and then it will transport you to an underground training facility. I started this story in Dallas, Texas, because again, that's where I'm from. Now, I was always told to write what you know. So in order to get going, I had to start somewhere. So I did just, in fact, that. I wrote what I knew. The picture to the left depicts a street called Elm Street. If you've never been to Dallas, Deep Ellum is a historical neighborhood, primarily where most young adults go to, as you can see, celebrate. There are substantial amount of bars, restaurants, clubs along these streets, and as you can see, downtown Dallas is literally within 20-minute walking distance from the street. So it's a very popular destination. If you're not familiar with Dallas, it is a younger crowd, specifically, and that's why I wrote about Deep Ellum, because it reminds me of the time in which I was able to be on this street. That is no longer the case. But and then to the right, I start to, again, just depict some of the scenes that you'll read within the first 3 chapters of the book. So in the first few chapters, you will know, or you will learn, that Marcos is, he's waking up from a night of tomfoolery. He's had a pretty cavalier night. And you'll start to understand why when you learn where he's going that morning. And he's so again, taking readers from Dallas, you leave Dallas within the first chapter, so it's a really quick departure. It's not intended to be a long time. Now here depicts Ifa. Now Ifa is an infinite fate advisor. It is the AI, the artificial intelligence that governs this underground training facility. Now, this training facility, what people don't know, it was created and constructed in part by Ebro. Now, Ebro had a ton of help in creating this compound, but it exists in present day United States, the world, who knows? But it does exist in present day. And let me stop there.
I kind of like the fact that it doesn't exist in a specific place. It adds to the mystery of it.
And that's certainly an intent. As you travel to this compound, the ambiguity of how you got there, where you're going, and the person who's taking you there comes to play in that first chapter. But I'll quickly describe what you're seeing here. So let me start to the left. The top left, you'll see an aircraft potentially landing, but also you see a bunch of light at the bottom. Now, let me back up for a second. During this journey, after 4 years of head down writing, I decided to bring some of these scenes and characters to life using generative AI. That has been invaluable. That process has been invaluable to helping me understand how, how pieces are described. This part of the second process was reverse engineering some of the images that I was coming up with by describing it. So I would describe it one way, and then depending on how that turns out, I would figure out where I went wrong, where I was insufficient in communicating the explanation of what I was seeking to achieve. The entire process of creating visuals for OOTP also taught me to write. And I wanted to highlight that as well. Each image that you see here was created using generative AI. Specifically, I use Midjourney. And so to depict the giant well, or the well-like, it looks like an impact from a meteor. Moving on to the right here, you'll start to see some of the interior spacing. And again, as you read along with the first 3 chapters, every visual will start to connect and tie it all back to the words. If you look to the right at the top piece here, let me go here. Let me see if you can see my cursor. So the top piece, well, let me back up. Let's focus on the right-hand side of the presentation. This compound is roughly 72 stories. And where did I get that from? I chose the tallest building in Dallas, which, fun fact, it's the Bank of America Plaza. And it's 72 stories high. You take that, and then I said, hey, what if I shove that into the ground? What is that going to look like? That's where I got this concept. And I say that because, okay, why the tallest building in Dallas? Well, that's how I describe this facility when I'm in Marcos's shoes and I'm traveling to this destination, and all I see is this cavernous hole. Idea behind it being circular was actually more subconscious initially, but now it's more so there's nowhere to go. You can go down, you can go up, but other than that, you're walking in circles. And so that idea of, regardless of what the compound is, you're trapped down there. That led me to the idea of a circle, if that makes any sense.
I like that.
So the compound itself, it is, you name it. There are training chambers. There's a massive library here at the top. This biggest piece here at the top, that is an arena. And if you look to the left, what's depicted here, you'll see some, for scale, you'll see some people at the center of the stage. And you'll have an idea of what that sunlight, how massive that sunlight is. And the idea is that that's dome, if you will, should be somewhere at the bottom of this hole. Now, if that's true, why is there so much light coming through? That's just because it's artificial lighting. Everything within this building is artificial. But once you're in here, The idea is for it not to be as obvious that you're underground. And I think we all understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me just let me go one more. So here to the left, if you drop down below this interior shot, again, I'm providing readers with just a vague visual of what you can expect on the inside of this place. Here you'll see this blue translucent barrier that sort of comes down like a cylinder or like a silo. Well, the idea is that there are different enclosed spaces underground. And the idea behind those enclosed spaces is that not everyone can access those enclosed spaces. Throughout the journey, you learn that as you rank up in the compound, as you achieve certain status within the compound, you obtain more access within the compound. And you want more access. Again, you have, if you take a combat school and you take a university, this is what you have. So there are barracks, there's communal bathroom showers, there are classrooms, lecture halls, and there are massive dining rooms. There's gathering spaces. There's leisurely spaces. I had the opportunity to really explore what this place could be. And as you can see, and these are just 3 snippets of, I guess, some of the designs that really were appealing to me. So let me stop there for a second. Looking at the screen now, I'd love to get your feedback on just what you think of the image itself. And please don't be shy. Anyone can jump in.
I like the color in the middle one. Yeah, it just gives it a bit more personality.
These 3 separate base designs, or are they all technically the same combined piece, just different sections of the 72 stories?
Completely different designs based off of the same description.
Gotcha.
Similar description, I should say.
I would agree. Like Patrick said, the middle one does have the most personality just because of the color. It has that translucent blue barrier that you referred to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like how involved the one on the right looks. It looks kind of like an ant colony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. I was thinking of that.
I love that you said that, by the way, because that, insects are exactly where I derive this idea.
Yeah.
Ants, beehives, any type of colony, any type of colonization where it's in a defined space.
Yeah, also the one on the right, you were talking about the hierarchy. You kind of see it a little bit more because it looks like people live in the different ones and a little up or a little bit fancier.
Story.
Yeah.
I can continue to engage my new friends that I'm making, artist friends specifically, and continue to be more intentional about certain spaces as I continue to define, what are the most important locations featured in the book. But ultimately, it's certainly meant to inspire others to, you tell me what you think the inside of this place looks like. It's meant to be that vague. Within the compound. So let me jump back to the chapters. How the chapters tie into what you just saw. You start off with a lecture. Now, as you read about the lecture, let me give you a bit about a background as to, how these images and whatever the words that you've read or listened to start to come together. And so I took my memories from university. But meeting new people, having to get uncomfortable. I did not care for the dorms. It was really loud. There's just a bunch of, immature, individuals my age just running around. It's boy, girl floors. And I loved it. I love many pieces of it. What I didn't appreciate was living amongst so many people.
Mhm.
I did not care for that whatsoever.
Scare me.
That first week of school was intense, is I think the best way to describe it. And I say that because my first day of class, my first class, and I'll never forget it, was political science. And there's probably about 350 some odd students in that room alone. And the professor does the timeless look to your left, look to your right. These people will not be here by the end of the semester.
Mm.
And that was my first day of school. I wanted to bring that same first day anxiety to Orishas. When you read the second chapter, where enlistees, because it's a strong military pull in the beginning, but when you read what happens in this room, you start to understand, okay, no one is safe. You have no friends. In here, everyone is a stranger. And the one person you thought you knew, they're no longer available to you.
Mhm.
And so now you must figure it out. And to be clear, the professor said, look to your left, look to your right. At the end, these people will not be here. And that's what I wanted to instill in the first couple chapters.
Well, I mean, it fits with what I read. Yeah, it's the idea that you don't know who your friends are going to be is proper dramatic device. But as I say, I've only just read the first 3 chapters. And it's at that point, it's been fitting together quite well. So that's all I've got to say, really.
I think the inclusion of that statement that not everyone's going to return or be, that you don't have friends there. I think that landed more when you said it out here versus the feeling in the actual atmosphere so far. Because of the conversation between Marcos and Rye, or when James was, flirting with that girl in class, it didn't feel as, shall we say, intense in the atmosphere. Like, we knew the stakes were very high, but it didn't feel necessarily like you might kill these people until this conversation now, I think, or until at least the arena. Squad game was definitely kind of jaw dropping.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I appreciate that. Let me,
even without having read it, it kind of sets the stage that's a very clinical, kind of analytical society where they're there for a specific purpose, not to make friends or to it's kind of like a way of weeding out the unsure ones, the ones who aren't committed to their purpose like they are.
and that's the beautiful thing about it, Julie. Doesn't matter if you change your mind here, you're stuck.
Yeah.
That's life. In this compound, you will meet all walks of life, and you will learn from them. You will be challenged by them. You may even fear some of them. And that too is what happens when you go into a new environment that is unfamiliar to yourself. And it's a hostile environment, which has been made incredibly clear right out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the images that you see here are more so to set the tone of, what different chambers, classrooms, just open spaces, what that looks like. The centerpiece, let me draw you to the centerpiece right here. how about I ask the question of what do you all interpret? How do you all interpret the center picture after what you know about, after what you've learned about the book?
It looks kind of like an iris scan.
It reminds me of the inside of Iron Man's mask, Jarvis.
Oh yeah.
I love that. What about you, Patrick?
Well, yeah, I don't really have the I don't really associate with things like Iron Man because I really don't watch movies about superheroes and that. It doesn't, yeah, it's not my thing. But yeah, it's very much a futuristic thing. I like the fact that she's got very African features. Yes, we're going to Nigeria. But in a very futuristic way. And of course, being the old man I am, I grew up in a science fiction world that was all white. So I find this quite refreshing.
Thank you so much.
Hi, this is Diane. Yeah, I can hear you guys. Yes.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the party. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. What a wonderful image I'm seeing.
The center image, I'd lead you with that because it's exactly a retinal scan. Julie, nail on the head. It's also it's also my interpretation of what a recruit, I guess, what a recruit would see, what it would look like. Wesley, to your point, if you could see inside the mask, right, without the mask, and what's really happening, because you realize that, or you learn that the artificial intelligence that governs the compounds, IFA, by way of a device that you learn about that recruits receive within the first few, let's call it the first hour of arriving, the Ori, which is essentially a wristlet, is connected to your body. And then you start to learn, why has this piece of device connected to my body? Why is that important? The only way you can live in this compound is if you can come and go as you please within the walls of the compound. And even then, you learn that you aren't able to come and go as you please. You're actually on a very set schedule, even down to when you sleep, eat, and when you can use the communal facilities. So then it starts to become more like a military base, or some people have said a prison system. And we've heard many different ways to describe this of a, what do you call it? A boarding school. We've heard.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Jump in.
Okay. The thing you described, like boarding school or prison, or the fact that you don't have the freedom to decide when you do whatever, it also sounds a little bit like the Borg in Star Trek. Or is it less like so? Because they all have like one conscience and one mind and one, So it's it sounds a bit like the Borg. Yeah.
I'll take your word for it. I'm not as familiar with the Borg. I am a recent Star Trek fan.
Okay. Okay.
But you are spot on.
7 of 9 is one of the characters, and I'm very happy with her. They used her like as a vehicle for people to understand what the Borg is about. Her name is 7 of 9. But okay, as you're a recent Trekkie, you'll catch up. But it sounds like the Borg. Yeah. Do continue. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Well, in the first installment, you'll start to, you'll have class in some of these environments. You will spend time in the library. You will spend much time with IFA just communicating with IFA as if you would your cell phone. That's also the intent behind the hard technology connect via the Ordi is that it's essentially your cell phone. When you start to reread the descriptions of how individuals start to use their Ordi, I'm hoping that you think, wow, you're really attached to this thing, and you're like, oh my gosh, what am I attached to? That's a device, right? And so I wanted to draw those parallels with one another. So as far as do they have a hive mind? No. The recruits they think for themselves, but they, essentially
but their
think of
actions are monitored.
Their actions are monitored. Their health is monitored. But let me just reveal some of the characters. So to the far left, again, that's Ebro. You've seen an animated idea of him. I've also explored what a live interpretation of these characters could potentially look like. I do want to emphasize that no depiction that you've seen is 100%. I have no idea what these characters want to look like, what they need to look like. That is for the fans to decide. What my goal is to make sure that I describe them in literature with enough details that everyone gets the basis of design, but not the full picture. Does that make sense? Oh, let me keep going, and I'll start with just a quick introduction, a background of their powers, how I've devised the personalities, and essentially why you should be super excited for them to be your main characters. So again, this is Ebro. Ebro, you will learn, which again is all in the storyboard. Ebro is an apex Orisha. So let me back up for a second. This is also a history lesson for those who are unfamiliar with the Yoruba culture. But in Orisha, essentially is a divine entity. Now, in Orisha is the name for a deity in the Yoruba culture. There are many Orishas, and I've chosen just a handful to introduce you to within the first couple installments. But along the way, as the arc unfolds, which I'll share more down the road, but as the arc unfolds, you'll learn more about the Orishas, and you'll be introduced to the new Orishas, at least new to us. So Ebro, divine entity, what does that mean? So Ebro, he has lived for centuries. Now, Ebro, he's brutal. He's no nonsense. He is charged with training the next crop of warriors, but he is not, his intent isn't to create or forge a warrior. He needs unrivaled warriors. Now, warriors, you start to learn, mean something different in this world. Today's warriors are soldiers. So you'll know that they'll have automatic weapons, maybe a blade, but essentially you have humans doing very human-like things. In this world, warriors are beyond human. But I will say this, these individuals, the way their power shows is through their senses. They have heightened senses. Their strength is increased, very much like a Superman character, right? You try to, defy gravity. You don't necessarily bend it, too far. You think of scenes like in The Matrix, where you're not entirely sure which reality you're in, but in the reality that you think you're in, you're able to manipulate it. That's how I'm encouraging individuals to see this new world. And so Ebro, he is the owner of the crossroads. He walks through any doorway, any hallway. He is able to cross time, space, distance. Again, he's lived for centuries. He has mastered every aspect of what he's capable of Every ability he's capable of manifesting. He's also a rogue scholar. He continues to learn. He learns whatever he wishes, and he implements them in the world however he wishes. He's obsessive, and his obsession it derives all the way back to 1600 into the 1600s. Now, okay, now that's out of left field. This project will take you 300 years into the future. But along the way, you will see and hear glimpses that'll take you back between 1300 and 1600. Now, why is that? That's because I didn't make all this up. Yoruba culture has existed long before I did. And that is where this story is inspired from, that culture. Ebro has charged himself with creating unrivaled warriors by any means necessary, creating this facility, this compound that does just that. But also, why is that? That's because he's searching. He's searching for one person in particular. He's searching for the person he had killed long time ago. And not because he's remorseful. It's because he didn't complete his task. I mentioned the themes that will be associated with this book. One of the themes will be about reincarnation. Another theme will be slavery. More themes will have to tie back to the diaspora. But as it pertains to reincarnation, that's what I meant by Ebro is hell-bent on finding that entity that he thought he had disposed of so long ago. Into the dust you shall return. And so when any entity in this world dies, their energy is recirculated. And Ebro knows this. And regardless of the story of how he managed to kill the entity that will not be named at this point in time, again, you start to learn that along the way. And then you're like, okay, Ebro has a story. Everyone has a story. Now, how does it fit into this story? That's what that's my hope, is that I can get this community along the way. Go ahead,
Well,
Patrick.
it's an interesting thing you bring out there, because at the start, say the 3 chapters I've read, Ebro doesn't have a story, and it's very tempting when you're writing to bring everything in at the beginning. And the idea that Ebro is going to have a story later on in the book, is to me quite compelling. Because if you bring everything in right at the start, you lose mystery, and there should always be a bit of mystery in narrative. And of course, if you leave everything to the end, then you kind of cheating the reader, because the reader needs to have some idea of what's going to happen, or when it does happen, you can understand why it happened based on what was revealed before. So I just simply saying I find that an interesting concept.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Well, let me wrap up Ebro, and I'll be quicker about the other characters. But Ebro, he creates voids. He creates spatial voids. That's an ability that he has. Again, he's able to walk through portals because he's the owner of the crossroads. But I mean, he can, create sharp shards of energy, and he uses it. I'll put it that way. To his right, again, that's Marcos. Now, Marcos was born. How do I put this? He was born in the present era. He is the main protagonist, the main character. You also learn that he is the vessel for the Orisha of thunder and lightning. Now that is what this story is about, is how does he learn more about who he is and why he is the way he is? And then you also follow the you know, what's his fate? Some people believe it was already written. Well, this character, you start to walk in his shoes and determine for yourself if it's written. Marcos has the ability. He's flame retardant. He's able to call the lightning. He's able to manipulate energy, electricity specifically, and also he is an advanced enhancer, which means that he's able to increase his strength, speed, and also a rare trait that he possesses, and rare in a sense that not even Orishas tend to have this ability, but he's able to transfer his energy to others.
Mm.
And in this world, you know, this isn't a world where you willingly give yourself to others. And so you start to wonder, what is the use of that?
I've got to say, I like this guy in the image. The imagery, yeah. This guy's a king with a capital K. You know, you just look at him and immediately know this is a king. And I just like the image.
He does appear very royal.
He does.
Makes me think of tarot cards, like the Emperor or one of the kings in the tarot deck.
Yeah.
Julie, you're spot on. I have, you know, my thoughts are that every character that are introduced throughout the book series become tarot cards.
Oh, all right.
And then behind those tarot cards, or, you know, maybe it's more of a playing card where you understand their rating system, XYZ, but TBD. To her right, to Marcos's right, that's Osha. Now, Osha is a unique character. She's the only female within Squad 7. She's not the only female within the compound. I can't say an equal amount, but there's no discrimination between male and female within the compound. And in the different squads that you learn about, some squads are made up only of women. Some squads are half women, half men. Some squads only have one woman or one man. The squads are they're created in mind by Ifa. Ifa determines who's in which squad. And so I bring that to your attention because Osha, again, she's the only female in Squad 7. Squad 7 becomes important because that's the squad in which the main characters come together. But Osha is also interesting because she cannot harness life's natural energy, Ashe. In the book, I call it Ashe. And I'm still playing with the idea of whether I call it Ashe or Ashe in the book, which I'd love to get your opinion about also. But Osha cannot harness it. Now, everyone in this universe, in this book's universe, is exposed to Ashe, but only a fraction of the world can harness it and manipulate it and leverage it to your needs. Osha cannot do that.
Interesting.
She can't feel it. She can't see it. She can't sense it. And so you wonder, okay, well, how's a person who's essentially completely mortal, there's not even an opportunity for her to pick up new skills in this new environment. So what does she do? And so you learn that Osha is a disruptor. And a disruptor meaning that this life's natural energy that we all rely upon, that she can't harness, she can disrupt it. She can disrupt that thing that you need. So if you come at her sideways, chances are she'll probably come out on top because what you probably need to thwart her has no sway against her. And that is why Osha is balance. She symbolizes balance. She is. Let me describe Osha as far as her personality. She is a leader. She is mature in the sense that she's a nurturer, but also she has foresight. She can sense what's coming. She can't sense what's coming, but you get what I'm saying? She has that intuition. that she relies upon. She's also someone who has never been someone who allows not having that thing that everyone else has stand in her way. She moves forward regardless. And so you learn that she learns more about herself in this university and learns that she is a master of arms. Essentially, anything she picks up, she can wield it almost right away or figure it out pretty quickly. More than that.
So what you're saying, Michael, what you're saying, Michael, is she's essentially like an elite soldier. Yeah, Green Beret, SAS, something like that. Yeah, no special power, just very, very good at her job. Is that the implication from what? That's the implication I get from what you're saying.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. And when you're in this environment, you ask yourself, okay, well, how does one protect himself against others? And if she's the only one that is who she is or like she is. But you're not introduced to in the first chapters, which I will keep back. But again, it's been introduced in the character essentials. She has to rely on her weapons. And one particular weapon she learns that is imbued with power. And so now you're introduced to inanimate objects that can be imbued with energy to be used and level the playing field. She's natural ability to wield any weapon that she comes into contact with. You pair that with a weapon that's imbued with energy, then you start to paint a picture as to how Osha can be an effective balance to the squad as well as the environment that she's in.
And if she has a superpowered weapon and can essentially deactivate another person's superpowers or disrupt them, that would put them at a markedly higher disadvantage.
That's the idea.
Okay, I gotcha.
And even then, as we all can surmise, it won't be that straightforward. There's still going to be hoops and hurdles. But to the right, I depict a very mysterious character who I will not name. And I say that because I don't know her name. I have not given her a name. But she is the first capable of doing what Osha can do now. And that doesn't necessarily mean that she's been reincarnated. But this character is meant to lead Osha on that journey of her own later on in finding out why is she able to do what she does? Why is her weapon capable of doing what it does? Who created her weapon? XYZ.
And this is the unnamed one, right? Who has the weapons trying to figure out? Okay.
Correct.
About it. One thing I will say about Osha, just purely the image, because I found her quite a compelling character in the narrative. The image, she's too thin. She ain't got enough bulk on her. It's not desperately bad, but just a little bit too much. I can't see this woman taking out an enemy. And that's purely the combination of what I see on the screen as the image and the image that I had in my head when I read about her. Yeah. Okay. So a small point which you can take on board or ignore. It's your prerogative. But just thought I'd bring it up.
The insecurity I have for what these characters look like, there's no way I can ignore what you said, Patrick.
You are to ignore me. Yeah, you are the creator. I'm just the ignoramus sniping from the sidelines.
Not at all. And I say that because I have no idea what Osha should look like either. I'm writing what she's doing. What she looks like, it's bare minimum. But what does it look like for a person to be able to do what she's capable of doing in the book?
And yeah, so I might be overstating it by saying, yeah, she looks a bit thin.
I'm not sure if
Okay.
you're familiar with the series Arcane on Netflix. Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
If you've seen season 2, what's her name? Ambessa Madarda. That I think would be a useful character reference.
Ooh, don't get me started on the character references. My campaign manager would tell me to stop. Okay. To the far left is Daniel Doc Rivera. Now, Daniel, I'm having fun with all of these characters. I don't know if you can tell, but Daniel's character, I'll keep some things to myself, but I wrote his character to be the weakest member of Squad 7.
Mm.
Now, that doesn't mean he's the weakest in the compound. And I say that because this compound is going to be filled with imagine going to the Olympics and you're not the strongest one in the Olympics, right? You're still in the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, his abilities are more geared towards parkour. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but his ground game is impeccable. He's able to close the distance between himself and an enemy, to use his surroundings better than almost anyone on the team because he has to. He can't stand toe to toe with just anyone. And so he has to think before he acts. And he learns that along the way. What's surprising, not surprising, what you don't immediately learn about Doc is that where does he come from? What's his background? He was a resident. He's a medical resident. He's second year resident at a hospital in New York, Puerto Rican, Black descent. His focus area is the study of blood, mythology, and I start to unpack why that's important to know about Doc along the way. But he starts to leverage his knowledge of his education in medicine, and his time in just that field. He pairs that with what he learns in this compound, not just on the fighting side, but in the libraries. And then he starts to leverage those skill sets. So he's adaptable. To the right, that's James. James he's that boy from Houston who had to find his own way. And I say that to say this. You begin to learn that James, he's running from something. And he's not a runner. He stands 10 toes down and he deals with whatever comes his way. But what he's running from is himself. He doesn't know what he wants to be, who he wants to be, and how he wants to be. And here this opportunity comes. As you can imagine, it can be lucrative to some people depending on how it's propositioned. But it's also a completely different life than what you had before. And that's what James is looking for. In his mind, he can figure it all out. Doesn't really matter. He'll get there. James, you learn his background. He's that guy that he used to be a flight attendant. And you're like, wait, what? A flight attendant? Yeah, he's a flight attendant for 10 years. And he did that strategically because he hasn't had to pay for a vacation ever. He's only ever gone to the most extraordinary places by way of thinking smarter, not harder. And you also realize that he's business savvy. He's a social butterfly. He hasn't met a stranger. And how do you pair all of that? He's caught between being a hood and being an aristocrat. Doesn't know what he wants to be. Let me stop there with these first two before I move on. What are your initial thoughts on Daniel and James?
They seem to be parallels of each other in some ways. The one's a little more uncertain, the other one a little more confident, sounds like.
James reads as insecure, based on your descriptions, and overcompensating. That's how that reads to me.
Okay. Love those initial blushes. Keep it going. So James is right. That's Otis. Now, most individuals who read the first few chapters, they have a gripe with Otis. They don't like Otis. And that's okay. All of these characters have much development to undergo.
Well, as I said when we discussed this a few weeks back with Otis, I felt, yeah, he's so hapless that, yeah, he's going to come good in some way that I can't predict. But he's almost being built up to suddenly show his worth in some way that you just can't predict from the early chapters. And I'm happy with that.
He also strikes me as terrified, just very scared, and trying to establish himself as dominant. Maybe because he lacks the feeling of being confident. Yeah, something.
See, there's so many layers to what you just said. You know, I want to go back to what I said originally. Write what you know. That's what I did. These characters exist. One way or another, they exist in my life, and they're a hodgepodge of the people in my life. And so when you say certain things like that sounds like insecurity, I laugh because you might be spot on. It's or you could be wrong. I don't know. It's just for me. It's like, oh, this is how this character would do it, though. I have no idea what that is. Maybe it is insecurity, and that's what you're telling me. I'm picking up, right? And I love that because people are complex or complicated creatures, and I want these people to be super complicated.
He seems like the type of guy that most of the readers would be like if they were in that situation. We all like to think that we would be the, join the rebellion and become the warriors and whatever. Probably would be scared to death to do something like that. I know I would. So he seems like the type of character that I think most, probably the reason he sets off so many readers is because in ways they are like him. They would be.
I think it's a very good point.
Whoa.
Yeah, I like that.
That's deep.
Well, I mean,
Thank you.
I've been talking about various dramas in recent weeks, and only just recently come to the realization, which is a bit late because I'm 60, that the most good dramas and comedies have an everyman, a person that you relate to in a world that's weird, somebody who reacts to that world in exactly the same way that you think any normal human being would. And it depends on what dramas you're familiar with. Yeah, but if you know Faulty Towers, Polly, the maid, is she just sees the world in exactly the same way that we do. None of the other characters do. They're all bonkers. Yeah. Life of Brian. Brian is like, please tell me what to do. I don't understand this world. Yeah, he's like us. And I get that. I get the feeling this could be the situation here. Yeah, where you think, I'm nothing special either. I'd struggle in exactly the same way this guy's struggling.
Mm-hmm. If I could,
Great thoughts. Go ahead.
Why I said what I did about Otis specifically, the facade that he gives across is evident in moments when he first meets Marcos, and you know, there's the smell of vomit on his breath, and when you know he has to go to their first training session and he's panicked because he can't find his shoes. Like, that doesn't read as confident as he was trying to present himself when he first entered the room. That's kind of what I was getting at. It came to me a little later.
You're like, he's a fraud.
Yeah, a little bit, just for now. I feel like he has more personality than he's allowing others to see, because he has to come off hardened in this military-esque training regimen.
I can't wait till this book. Well, honestly, it's not till installment 3 that you I mean, you see the growth in each installment for these characters, but it's installment 3 where you see him live a life. How do I put this? You see him try to pick up his life in the new environment that he finds himself in. Like, what does that look like? 300 years in the future, which is where everyone's going, right? What if you were not associated with the military and you just had to pick up and live? That is what you experience that for everyone, but I sincerely can't wait till you guys experience that for Otis.
Cool.
But Otis, let me tell you about Otis's abilities. So again, I want to start with Rogue Scholar. He is the smartest in this group.
Great.
And I mean that in a book sense. There's not too much he can't pick up. He is someone who you know, I won't call it insecurity, but he's pragmatic in a sense that he knows, you know what, I prefer a shield and a sword than crossbow and whatever, you know. And he can justify why in the scene that he's in for whatever reason. He is that kind of person. It makes the most sense in the world for him to do whatever he's doing in that moment. He is that guy, and his abilities change because he's figuring out what he wants to be really good at. Everyone has the ability to grasp a form of the, let's call it magic. So it's spoken word, written word, and then mindful creations. And those are simply, you have symbols, you have it verbally, and then you don't need either. It comes from your mind, and that's how the magic takes off. Well, the way I've broken down the magic system, you can either be an enhancer, a conjurer, or a possessor. Usually it's one of those three. One of those three you're going to be the most gifted at. You're able to touch an aspect of those three categories, but you're going to fit into one of them as far as what you lean most towards in the dominant side of your abilities. And that doesn't mean you can't specialize in something completely different. That is just, think of it as a, what do you call it? You have a focus. And Otis's focus is biology, protection, and mindful creation. So you start to see that, all right, through his, it's kind of balance between what I tell you, what I don't tell you. But what you learn from Otis is that he's trying to protect himself at all costs. So you see him go through being able to conjure shields, conjure weapons that he thinks he needs in the moment in which he needs it. And then you realize, wow, that costs a lot of energy. Are you able to be that adaptive when you don't really know if you can survive whatever event that you're in that moment, and then whatever happens after that moment? Mm-hmm. And so Otis, what I've landed on is that he becomes a transmutationist. And a transmutationist meaning, how many of you are familiar with Mortal Kombat? Nope. Not your world, Patrick. That's okay.
Loosely.
That's okay. Well, Gura is a character in Mortal Kombat that has 4 arms. Mm. I was thinking about that character when I was thinking about Otis. And that Otis realizes, you know what? There should be two of me. That way I can always protect my back. But realistically, that's not possible. So, well, it is in this world, but for him, it's not. So I'll give myself more arms so I can wield more weapons or do X, Y, Z with them. So I'll learn how to do that. That's his thought process. It's like, okay, what do I need to do to be effective? To make sure I survive at all costs. I need to harden my skin. I need to be able to grow in bulk. I need to be fast because I'm bulky. That's how he thinks. And you start to see that it unravels in the story as I share Otis's background. Oh, and his background before he enlisted, he's a retired NFL player. He retired early.
Thanks.
You know, that was in his 20s. In his 30s, he decided, you know what? I want to save the body. And you start to learn that, oh, well, during that time, Otis's family nearly drained him dry. That's not a story we haven't heard before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Let's talk about it.
And so, smart guy like Otis, he wouldn't make bad investment decisions. But maybe his family, who he did see coming, was the red flag he should have saw coming.
Mm-hmm.
That's Otis's background that you'll start to get into later on. And so his level of trust is at an all-time low, because who else do you trust if you can't trust your family?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then also, when you realize that, oh, you're retired NFL, you know, another reader brought to my attention, was like, well, that's probably why he feels the way he does or does what he does. He's used to being traded, or the idea of being traded, or the idea of competing against other people who are just as, you know, Olympian as he is. And so now, you know, you realize, well, Otis this isn't his first time being in an environment such as this necessarily. He's been around egos. He's been around people who can move their body in a way that most people can't. So that's not new to him. And so you just start to unpack that bag. Otis's right is a depiction of Ifa, if I were to give it a face. Again, Ifa is an artificial intelligence. And I wanted to give her a face that suggests wisdom, but also ambiguity, because it's not a woman. It's whoever created Ifa. You realize that whoever this woman is, or depicted as, there must be a tie to her creator. But again, that's much later down the line. Are there any questions regarding Otis and Ifa?
It looks a little bit like Isis. Reminds me of Isis. Egyptian mythology.
No, that's something else I could use your help with. You know, another comment I got is this story, at least the first 3 chapters, doesn't feel, I'll just use this word, Afrocentric enough. You know, it doesn't say what people think it should say. And to me, I'm okay with that. But it did hit an insecurity of mine, because I don't necessarily feel I need to explain myself once it's out. Right? And let's be clear, it's not out yet. But I don't intend to explain myself once it's out either. Because in my world of real estate, the work must stand on its own, long past you. So I'd be curious to really chat it up with, as we unpack all these stories.
Fiction is work of the imagination, and works of the imagination, they only depend on the imagination of the creator, and you have no grounds to feel ashamed that your imagination isn't what somebody else's imagination was. Well, you just say to that other person, well, you've got better imagination, well, go and do your imagination. This is mine. And you have no responsibility to anyone.
I love that. I appreciate that, Patrick. Keep that in mind. Yes, Gold Coast. As depicted in the texture, the style. So what I didn't say before, there are some images depicted in this document that are not AI generated. This is one of them. I will point out the ones that are not. But again, this is one of them. My artist friend, Jacob Noble, he helped me out in creating, a map for the world. It'll look familiar because we did nothing different to it. It's exactly as it is depicted on Google Earth. And what we did to embellish is 300 years in the future. The intent is that everything is where it's supposed to be. Problem is, you can't see it. It's overgrown by nature. It's overpopulated with wildlife. The civilian population, I shouldn't say civilian, just the population in general, human population around the globe has been decimated by this virus that I didn't mention that you hear about in the Dallas chapter, right off the cuff, and I relate it to COVID. And immediately after COVID, the waves of people that did not survive COVID, I significantly increased that in this world to the point to where 300 years in the future, the world you knew is no longer. And now there aren't nations. Nations don't exist. There are territories, and territories are in short supply because territories are protected by the most powerful beings in whichever culture owns that territory or controls that territory, I should say.
No,
and so,
sorry. Quick question:
go for it.
Is there
please
an approximate number of humans left remaining?
I can't give a number because I sincerely don't know what makes sense, but I will put it to you like this: 10 to 12.
Okay.
Colonized locations or territories, I want to call it, on this planet 300 years in the future. And those territories, so we know we're going to Africa, right? Specifically, we're going to West Africa. The rest of Africa is uninhabited by humans.
Okay.
Only on this coast will there be a population in Africa. If you're bringing people from the past, eventually they're going to want to go home. They're going to want to see. They're going to be curious. Oh, I'm going to address that not much later, but I will address that in a sense that you can't go home 300 years in the future and you try to somehow get back to the States, let's call it. You're going to realize it's shut down by a powered community. And it's the natives, by the way. It's definitely the natives. They shut down the territory considered previously North America, and they take it back, and no one's allowed in. No one knows what's happening. There will be, I don't want to use nations right here, but you will have an Asian territory. Let me call it that. You will have an Indian territory. You will have a South American territory, and that's all I'm giving you for now. But each of those territories, again, are going to be heavy culturally based. And so you'll see deities from those regions. And then I'm going to quickly elevate. I won't give you the backstory on those territories, but I will quickly elevate the main characters that represent those territories and how they interact with the main characters from our book. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Up to a point. I mean, everything's going to change in this world you've created. Because we have to bear in mind that all African countries are created by what European nations could grab, and they don't necessarily make sense. I mean, look back to the Biafran conflict in the 60s. Yeah. Where people tried to create nations based on who they were rather than what white Europeans could grab. Yeah, and so you've got a lot of freedom, I think, there to create a world that is based on ethnicity, religion, whatever creates countries. Yeah, and you can do that because it's futuristic. I'm looking at the map. It's clearly Ghana, Lome, Togo, Nigeria, bit of a bit of Cameroon there, and 300 years in the future, that could look incredibly different. And like we talk about, Yoruba as a distinct group. I would talk about Igbo as a distinct group as well. But the boundaries would be based on who lives there, which is kind of idealistic, but why not? 300 years time. I'm quite happy with that view. It doesn't have to look like countries do now, because Africa is an artificial construction of European imperialists still. Even though they're all independent, it's still based on the European imperialists.
I wanted to ask real quick, just for my understanding the map more clearly, the gold locations, would that be with the actual? Is that where the cities are located, and all of the black being the overgrowth, or is it the kind of other way around? Because I see Accra over there, so that's Ghana, and I see Lagos and Abuja, so that's all Nigeria.
You can see here all the gold that matriculates into the black. It's the tree line. It's the
okay.
So think of it like a mass forest, if you will. We embellished what was currently on maps and just continue to grow it. And same thing. We kept water where it is, but then we grew around it. So the black insinuates no one lives in these areas because you can't. You don't know what's in there, but it's not next to civilization as we know it. Why would this area of the world survive and others don't? Well, you have to remember, I'm taking people from present day, transporting them to 300 years in the future. Now, he didn't just do this one time, 2 times, 10 times. You realize Ebro's been doing this for decades. And then you ask yourself, why has Ebro been doing this? To get everyone here. This is 300 years in the future. So the next few images are just going to be a depiction of what past installment 1. So now we are past installment 1. The end of installment 1, you arrive in Yoruba land. And that's where we cut it. It's going to be epic. You don't know who that deity is. Essentially, it's an Orisha who you just haven't been introduced to. You assume some things. People can assume some things by the feathers. But not everything is accurate, right? So here in the center, and then we go back, that's where I'm going to tie imagery to the map in the hardcover so you can get the full color of the vibrant gold and black. However, I'll be doing a black and white aspect of the map, more simplified, try to keep the texture, but it'll be more, anyways, that will be in the paperback version. So let me just keep going. It's all leading here.
Wow.
Oyo Empire. I chose Oyo because they had an established system in place that I was able to do most of my research. Exactly how their cavalry is structured by the titles of their chieftains, how they break out, where command happens around their empire or kingdom, and then who rules them. Who rules them is the owner of the palace. Again, this dates back. This is a historical element of it. That's the education piece that I intend to bring to it. The Alafin, the term Alafin loosely translates to owner of the palace. The Alafin, essentially the Oba, the king, for this empire, specific this empire. So that's how the name is derived. So now I've told you what Orishas means, and now I've told you what owner of the palace means. King. And so from that, what are your thoughts?
I love any type of like science fiction, fantasy fiction novel that has a lot of world building. Almost always, every year, I pick at least one science fiction fantasy novel that has such great world building in it. And I can definitely see where you worked on that. So I'm very impressed. Even though it's Earth, it's futuristic Earth, but it's still got enough creativity and originality, that an imagination that you can still picture yourself in it. And sometimes you can even tell when an author doesn't put everything in the book, that you could tell that they thought long and hard about what this world is going to be like. And I absolutely love that. And every year I always pick at least one book that has that element to it. Not going to spoil and say it's you, but you're definitely right up there.
Thank you. More to come on the visuals. These are the best that I can do. I am not an artist. I don't know what I am these days, but I'm trying to do a lot. Well, more world building. Again, if you go to our website, you can see the gallery page where you'll see some of this depicted, but my Instagram handle is where I've shown the most of the world building. Here, so let me describe what you're seeing here. I call it the oil squalor. And you ask, okay, why squalor? Well, 300 years in the future, let me describe to you what this world looks like. Let me go back. In this world, the hierarchy is all about who's the best, who's the most powerful. And the most powerful may not be the strongest. It may be just the person who can grasp their abilities the best, who can leverage what they know the best. And how do they do that? That could be a evil person. That could be a benevolent person. It really doesn't matter. In this world, that they who are the most adept wins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's terrifying. But that's the world we live in.
Sure.
And so here you learn that every citizen is in the military. Everyone serves.
Mm-hmm.
Now, active duty is a 10-year stint. That's mandatory. All citizens born in the Oyo Empire must serve for 10 years. And even after that 10 years, in times of war, you must return to duty.
Bit like the Roman Empire then.
And so, yeah, okay, in this environment, now I just told you the most powerful rule, all aspects of it, their economy. They control the economy. They control their government. They control their military. They control the education here. It is very much so a dog-eat-dog world, but it's also an opportunistic world where you can be literally anything you want to be. Anything. As long as you put your best into it and become become capable of doing whatever you choose to be. What happens when ability is nurtured and there's no bias? What happens? Everyone should thrive. That's the hope, right? That's that, what do you call it? That's the dream. That's the utopian world, is that everyone has the potential to be whatever they want to be. In this world, it is. Except the drawback is you're quickly left behind if you are not up to snuff. there's not much empathy in this world. There aren't people who are willing to wait for you to catch up. That does not exist here. And where it does exist, the squalor is an idea that in this world, those who live on the surface, let's call it, usually are the strongest because they fear less. Those who are on the surface, those who are exposed, let's put it in different terms, they are comforted in the fact that they are together, as you can see, together with some of the strongest members of their society, because only the strongest members choose to live outside. And by outside, I mean outside of an enclosed cave system, which is the terrain that the world has changed to over the 300 years, which I'll explain that later. But those who live on the surface side are the strongest. So those who choose to live more so on the enclosed areas of this world aren't as strong. Now, again, doesn't mean they're weak. They just choose to live differently. But they know their limitations. They also live like a community. It's all one empire, but it's different districts. And in this district, it's usually ran by the mafia. So there's the Oyo Mafia. They are the strongest of the stronger. Essentially, they rule the underworld. They have connections. Some people, they have what they call the eldest man, which is essentially the leader of their outfit. And I use those terms and I use those mafia groups. And you start to learn there are many different mafia houses, and they are all essentially acolytes of Orishas from centuries past, to the point to where they don't even remember why they became who they became as a mafia house. But they originated centuries ago because they were acolytes of Orishas. Orishas who have, over centuries, have gone on to do whatever they want to do. They don't live necessarily in this territory. They live wherever they want to live because they're deities. And so you start to learn over the course of the next couple installments that, these mafia houses, they have they're usually led by a very strong member in society. Strong as an aristocrat, strong as in an Olympian, strong as in a powerhouse in government, economics, but they are the best of the best, but they also choose to live life their way. And so they have a house, and and it's the house of ill repute in some of them, not all of them. There are some houses where it's only filled with subservient individuals because that's how they manifested as a community. There are all types of communities. Oh, and get this, and I'll give this spoiler away, but the leaders of the mafia houses, just because they look young doesn't mean they're young. That's another thing. You begin to learn that the better you are at grasping life's natural energy, the more it rejuvenates you along the way. So a 75-year-old, let's say, could really be moving like a 45-year-old. You have extended life. You're now the average life cycle, the average age of an Oyo civilian is actually around 125. And that only changed in the past 75 years. You start to learn that along the way. What's the plan? This is the plan. This campaign is intended to bring Orishas to life. And it started in 2020. I started writing during COVID. I challenged myself to do something I've never done before, and that ended up being opening my eyes underwater. I received LASIK when I was 26, and I haven't opened my eyes since. So when I was 30, when the pandemic hit, I told myself I want to open my eyes underwater. We had a pool in the backyard. I'm going to do that. 10:30 in the morning, I'm in the pool. I also want to ride my bike with no hands. I failed to learn how to do that as a kid, as a teen. I never got to that. I told myself I'm going to ride a bike with no hands. So I taught myself how to ride a bike with no hands. And then I told myself I was going to begin this journey so I can get it out of my head. This is Orishas is one story, not the installment. Orishas. I have 6 installments planned in my head for Orishas. 2 on paper. And the time gaps are going to be anywhere from the first installment's 10 months. The second installment is a summer. The third and fourth installment will be a 3-year jump. And the fifth and sixth will be a 10-year jump. It's been 10 years since you've met these characters at this point, is the intent. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So again, I said 2020 was when the writing started, and 2024 is when I finished, if you will, the outline for the first 2 installments. And that's also when we started built a website platform, started exploring generative AI to depict scenes and characters, started researching self-publishing routes, understanding what the cost is for everything, 3D printed materials, merchandise, you name it. We established, my wife and I, we established Creative Studio. Creative Studio is a marketplace where we are broadcasting me as its first curator. And this is one story. I have 8 in my mind that I hope to accomplish and get out on paper over the course of my writing tenure. My next will be a manifesto, which I'm very excited to share with you all. But again, let me stick to where I'm at. This is where we are, 2025, using Kickstarter to crowdfund the not only the production of the books, but also the adaptions. So our goal is to bring this to life in many different mediums, however fans want to see it. And currently, I'm hoping fans agree with me and that this should manifest into an anime format and also a gaming format.
Ooh.
And now the anime it could be an anime series. It could be in a series and a full-length film. I'm hoping for both, but I'm only asking for 2 pilot episodes to start. I'm asking for a demo, a gaming demo. I'm asking for funds to work to collaborate with video game developers and with animators. I'm going for Studio Ghibli style animation. Black anime has not existed for very long.
Mm.
Retro Black anime doesn't exist at all. Period. I wish for this to be the first. And to do that, it has to be the best. And I believe the best is Studio Ghibli. That's a personal opinion, and I'll stand on that. Last but not least, again, the arc continues, which I've explained. I have many different installments planned for Orishas. And with that, we did make it. We're 5 minutes away from our 2-hour mark, but you guys hung in there, and I can't thank you enough for doing so.
All I say, Michael, is it doesn't matter whether nobody's done it before. Yeah, you've done the best you can. Yeah, and all you do is say, "This is the best I can do." Can you do better? Go on, prove it. But this is I'm going to do my best. Beat me.
That's the plan.
I'll just nitpick it. Yeah, the word is adaptations, not adaptions, but
Adaptations. Okay. Thank you for that correction. Sorry,
I'm an editor. It's yeah. A sub-editor is never off duty. That's all right. Everything else I've read has been pretty much on point. As it comes to from an editor's point of view. So So I hope you'll forgive my minor quibble.
No, keep them coming, Patrick. Okay. Any questions I haven't answered yet? What are final thoughts?
I'm looking forward to reading it.
Julie, you will.
Yes.
This story will be released this year. I am targeting a Q3 release to date.
All right. I usually do ebooks, so yeah.
Well, we can certainly do that. Well, let me do this. If you haven't already started following Curatify Studio on LinkedIn, please do. If you all are confident that you want to pre-order this book already, just shoot me a DM and say OOTP. And that's what I'm asking individuals to do. DM me OOTP. But right now we're looking at a mid-May campaign launch, where it will be a 30-day event in crowdfunding. For, we're going for sales, copies, downloads. That's our initial. But if fans want more, if they want the anime, if they want the game, if they want the live action, if they want the documentary of how I've put all this together over X amount of time, we would need the community to come together and say we want this here. And so if you all agree with it too, I'm hoping that you become a voice as well and say, hey, we want this here. And with that, that's my piece. Thank you all for your time again.
All good. Thank you very much, Michael. It's been a real pleasure talking to you over the past few weeks. And nice to see Julie, Tiffany, and Wesley, and Diana, who seems to have gone off now. But yeah, it's been a great pleasure. So thank you. Thank you very much for an interesting experience.
Hearing about it. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is my first time branching into the panel editing, proofreading, all of that kind of side of my interests, right? Like Michael knows, or Remy knows, I'm 28, so this is my first real dive in. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
Cheerio, everybody.
Cheers.